Hey, what's up guys? Alex here with a new video, and today we're doing my first impressions on the new Leica SL2-S. I picked this camera up about a month and a half ago, and I've used it with a wide variety of scenarios, wide variety of lenses, and I finally have my first thoughts. So I'll start off by saying this. If you're familiar with the channel or you're a subscriber, no, I'm not leaving Canon. No, I'm not switching over. This is a camera that I've been kind of lusting over since the Leica SL2, and let's just get into it. So if you're familiar with the channel, actually, you've been through the journey. Last year, I got sucked into the Leica world, and it's just been a whirlwind. I picked up a Leica Q2, fell in love with the color science, fell in love with the files, which then got me thinking, if the Q2 is this great with a 28mm lens, how good would the SL2 be with a 50 or a 35? And I ended up picking up an SL2. The problem was when I picked up my SL2, it had a dead pixel on the screen, so I had to return it. When I got my second body in, the replacement I would say, it had a speck of dust stuck in the viewfinder, so I had to return that as well. And at that time I figured, you know what, I'm just gonna give it a few months. I'm gonna wait for Leica to iron out kind of the post-COVID production line. And then Leica announced the Leica SL2-S, which is the exact same body as the SL2, exact same viewfinder, actually exact same everything, but with a 24 megapixel sensor. And I figured since this is my personal camera, my do everything camera, 24 megapixels is more than enough, and I picked it up. So here we are. For my first impressions, like I do with all my videos, I'll be putting up pictures I've taken with the camera. And just know that, again, I'm not using this for weddings, at least not yet. I've used it just for personal work, and I've used it for one session with a model just last week to see how it performed in that environment. So those are the images you'll see. But I wanted to cover two things. I wanted to cover build quality. I lied, I'm gonna cover three things. I'm gonna cover build quality, image quality, and autofocusing. So let's get started. Build quality. This camera is a tank. It is made out of a solid piece of aluminum. It is heavy, it is large, and it fits great in the hand. This has the best grip out of any mirrorless camera in the market, at least in my opinion. I'm 6'4" and I have large hands, and a lot of mirrorless cameras are just made so small nowadays, and it's just a terrible experience for me. It's a small grip, my pinky hangs, or my hand rubs against the lens. Again, not a good experience. Canon has the second best grip, I think, because you're able to use large lenses without kind of your fingers rubbing on them. But we're talking about Leica. This camera is wide, it's heavy, and the grip is just great. You can see it here, my pinky does not hang. It fits perfectly on the grip. My fingers don't even get close to rubbing on the lens. And overall, for people with large hands, it's a great experience. If you have smaller hands, this is probably gonna be a nightmare because it is a big camera. But the build quality, it's weather resistant. I think it's actually the highest weather sealing, the highest rating. I definitely use this in the rain and be okay. And it just feels great. EVF is great, touchscreen is great. Zero complaints on build quality. As a matter of fact, I think the only con of build quality is once you hold this camera and once you use this camera, every other camera feels cheap, even if they're not. And that's just kind of an interesting side effect of using the Leica SL2 or SL2-S. As far as image quality, here's a part where my expectations were low. I'm not gonna lie to you. I've been spoiled by high megapixel sensors. Like I said, I had the Q2, that's 47 megapixels. I picked up the Leica SL2 because of it, 47 megapixels. My primary camera is a Canon EOS R5 at 45 megapixels. So when I saw it was 24 megapixels, I figured, I'm gonna give it a shot. I'm not sure how I'm gonna feel about it, but let's see what the sensor's all about. And I have been blown away. This sensor is a low light king. So I've seen a few videos on YouTube comparing it to the Sony a7S III as far as low light capabilities. I've never used that camera. As a matter of fact, I've never used a Sony a7S camera, so I can't say how it compares. What I can say is I've shot several images at ISO 12,800, and not only are they usable, they look great. And that is just wild. Usually, I've tried ISO 6400 on most cameras, and even then I was like, if I have to, I'll use it, but not thrilled about it. ISO 12,800 on this camera is beyond usable. without any noise reduction, and it's just completely blown me away. The Leica color science, the Leica raw files are so easy to edit. They're just punchier. They have just better colors in my opinion, and they're a joy to use. And this sensor overall has really blown me away. It has tons of dynamic range, and with a high ISO, it really makes it a well-rounded sensor, and I'm not missing the extra megapixels, which is something I wasn't expecting. So first impression so far, this camera is just an overall winner from a sensor and build quality perspective. Getting into autofocus, here's the area where the camera's still very behind other cameras. So unfortunately, this camera still only uses contrast-based autofocusing. Now, this camera has an improved algorithm over the SL2, and I can confirm it is better. As a matter of fact, it's better in autofocus continuous mode. So when I used the Leica SL2, I did happen to use it for an engagement session, and I noticed the camera performed better when it was in AFS. Pretty much locks onto a subject, acquires focus, takes a picture. But when I put the camera in AFC, or autofocus continuous, the camera struggled. It hunted, and it didn't hit focus as often. So when I had the SL2, I just kept it in AFS. With the SL2-S and the new algorithm, I actually tried AFC the other day, autofocus continuous, and I had a model walk towards me, and not only did the camera track the model the entire way, it nailed about 90% of the shots. Now, I was also shooting at a lower shutter speed, so I'm not sure if those 10% of shots that were autofocus were because of the shutter speed and obviously motion blur, or because the camera just missed by a hair. But that whole sequence of the model walking towards me at a medium pace would not have been possible with a Leica SL2. I tried it with a couple. It just didn't hit at a rate that I thought was acceptable. So the new algorithm on the SL2-S is definitely improved, and they're actually even launching an update later this year that's going to enable eye detection and just better autofocusing. Now, again, it's still going to be a contrast-based system, so it won't be as fast as like the Canon's a dual pixel AF or Sony system, but it is nice to see Leica improving and probably pushing the contrast-based system to its limits. Again, this is just my first impressions. I've used the camera for about a month and a half, so definitely haven't put it through all scenarios, but so far I'm very, very impressed. And I haven't even talked about the lenses or the M lenses, so tons more content coming on the Leica SL2-S. I think my next video, I'm going to talk about the lens I have on right here, the Leica 50mm f1.4 Summilux. This is a special lens. As a matter of fact, let me show you this. When I had this lens with the Leica M body, the lens was still great, don't get me wrong, but this lens is even though it's kind of small, it's heavy. It's a lot of glass and metal. It wasn't very well balanced with a Leica M camera. It's just front heavy. So every time you put the camera down on a table, or you put the camera down period, the camera would always just kind of tilt down, right? Hit the table, hit the desk. Check this out. With the Leica SL2, I could put it on the desk, and look at that. Like Thanos would say, perfectly balanced, as all things should be. But that's my next video. So guys, first impressions, let me know your thoughts below. As always, please like the video, please subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Have a good one, guys. Peace.